Friday, January 26, 2024, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So the topic today is a topic that I don't like talking about. It's the UK economy. And why is that? Well, because I've been forecasting that we'd have an economic collapse in the UK for about 3 years, and it might have sounded when I started it doom mongering, and it's not really what I'm trying to be here, a doom merchant or anything, because I'd rather have the UK economy be doing really well, the country being prosperous, people having good jobs, a sound currency, no inflation, country being at peace, than the situation that we're in today. So I make these videos not with glee, but with, yeah, sadness, because I've been here for over my half my life. My wife is English. My daughter is English, and it's my home now. So, unfortunately, though, things haven't gotten better, and I don't take any, yeah, pride or any, you know, yeah, I'm not like happy that I've been right about this forecast, but unfortunately, what I've done is looked at behavior, economic behavior, political behavior, monetary and financial behavior, and I've been doing that for over 20 years. And back in '08, when the system was on the brink of collapse, the banking system, and uh, the Labor Party, the government saved the banks via basically borrowing from you, from the future. I knew then that things would not get better. And the other thing that happened um, with that bailout of irresponsible bankers and irresponsible households who took on too much mortgage debt is that they set a precedent, a really bad precedent. And is it any wonder that we keep borrowing and bailing people out? We did it again in 2020, and we're probably going to do it again soon. The other thing that worries me, though, now is war. Unless you are in a cave and you're not really in the real world out there, you probably have seen lately here in the UK all the headlines in the major newspapers, all the talk in the mainstream media, even though I don't watch the mainstream media, but you get snippets of it through Twitter and even YouTube, is that we're going to be in a war against Russia very soon. Well, some say it's in 20 years. Some say that an ally could be at war with Russia next year, and that we have to start, recruiting young people to go fight for this establishment. And why do I say the word establishment? Well, it's not just me, Johnny Foreigner here in the UK, talking about this. I listened to a very long interview yesterday. It's on James English YouTube channel, and I recommend it. It's over an hour and 30 minutes, and it's with an ex SAS soldier, and he was involved in the release of of a few hostages at the Iranian embassy in 1980 in Knightsbridge in London. And this is a guy who was in the army for 27 years. And I recommend you watch the whole thing. It might be a little long, but you might want to skip it to around an hour and 20 minutes. And he's saying that there's no solution for this country, that the establishment is no good. And I agree with him. It doesn't matter who gets elected later on this year. Things are not going to get better. And he notes that they only care about themselves. they want to look after number one. They're not serving the public here in the UK. And that's the way I see it too. So what about all the talk of recruiting young people or even conscripting them? Well, there's the old saying, I think it was, I forgot who said it exactly. I'm going to put it down here uh, when I edit this video, but the saying is that war is the health of the states. So I think the economy is so desperate. Well, the powers that be, the catastocracy or the establishment, they're so desperate and so worried about the economy that they need to, well, either keep inflating, but that would destroy the currency, or they have to create another crisis. They have to create an enemy, be it Russia, China, or the BRICS. But they need to also scare the public, and by talking about conscription and needing 500,000 young people to join the army or the Navy and the Royal Air Force, will scare people into thinking, well, they're serious. But actually, my wife has been uh, watching a lot of YouTube videos about this topic, like on GB News even and others. And she goes through the comments, and all the comments are, no way, I'm not going to fight for these people. So I think they have a problem on their hands, the establishment. And yeah, so the prospects don't look good. And I'm going to look at some articles here that prove that my forecast, and I'm going to share this with you here. If you give me a minute, my forecast of economic collapse, unfortunately, has been correct. And also my prospects or my forecast of the UK debt time bomb have been right as well, right on the money. So here's my playlist, and you can go through it. There's like 17 videos. The UK economic collapse, 2021 and beyond. That's when I could feel that it was inevitable that we were going to have an economic collapse, even after '08, I saw it coming, because the amount of debt we had to take to bail out the bankers in the city of London and on Wall Street was humongous. And it was going to be like a burden on current generation and future generations. And it's proven to be so. Of course, a lot of people are buying into the talk that it's because of Brexit. They're blaming Brexit for everything, but they couldn't be more wrong, in my opinion. But anyway, here you go. That's my playlist. I started out saying the UK economy is on the brink of economic collapse, and then I moved to UK economic collapse is underway. And then I've spoken, and you might want to listen, this for the solution for Britain's economic woes. Well, it's not going to be from the establishment. That's for sure. It's not more of the same, right? And here I have UK debt time bomb. And I've been warning about this, well, for 6 years, as you can see here. UK general election does not matter who wins. It's the debt, stupid. So there you go. Gold, the pound, and the UK debt mountain. UK national debt tops 2 trillion as the economic collapse unfolds. That was 3 years ago. So yeah, this is not something new for me and my viewers, but I'm starting to see more and more, not just going on TikTok or Instagram, and looking at just normal people going out there and filming like city centers throughout the UK that are completely empty, where the shops are all boarded up. It's amazing. And I think that's why they don't like social media. I'm not saying that a lot of the stuff we see on social media isn't rubbish and misinformation, but I think what the establishment or the kakistocracy, and look up that word, kakistocracy, it's KAKIS, kakistocracy, and you see what I mean. I think they are scared that there are too many uh, citizen journalists out there, and they actually go and look at the things that the mainstream or the BBC are not told to go look at, and they report it truthfully. And that's what they're worried about. That's why they're passing many laws to try to stop people from, you know, publicizing this. I mean, this is what I'm doing. I'm just like someone who worked in the city of London in the financial sector, who for the last 8 years or so has been reporting on what I'm really seeing. I don't have a background in media or journalism, but anyone can do this. It just takes a bit of discipline, hard work, and you have to stick to what you know. So let's go and look at the debt situation. And this is from the mainstream media now. The Daily Telegraph is reporting on it. And it says, worst debt burden since 1950s, make huge tax rate inevitable, warns IFS. Why is this negative? Well, if you make a tax rate and if it's inevitable, it means that the economy won't be able to grow. It's already one of the reasons why you see shops boarded up in city centers. You see cities like Birmingham going bust and others on the brink of going bust, is because there's too much taxation, too much regulation. And people can't start a business. They can't run a business. And here in London, Greater London, the whole of London, now we've got charges like ULEZ that are making life more and more difficult for the builder, for the average worker that has to drive around in his van or her van and do stuff. So they're destroying the economy. Sometimes I wonder, how can, people be so evil to want to destroy their own country's economy? I don't understand it. Either they're evil or they're just stupid, or they live in the Westminster bubble and they can't see, they don't go and look around the country to see how bad things are. So it says high interest costs and low economic growth will hamper efforts to tackle UK's debt pile. What should be done? Well, we need to cut the size of the establishment, or like Rusty Furman, he was the SAS guy in the interview, said, we need to get rid of the establishment because they've proven to be completely incompetent and they're not going to do anything to change things, to cut the size of government, to cut the pork, the corruption, in order to cut the size of government. So here's the part where the chap from the IFS, it's the Institute for Fiscal Studies, set. This is what he said. The challenge is that with higher levels of spending on debt interest and forecasts suggesting that economic growth will continue to be weak, getting debt falling will be much more difficult than in the recent past, and arguably the most difficult than at any point in the post-war period. So that's the situation for the UK economy. The other article that I saw that talks about the collapse is this here. This is from thisismoney.co.uk. It was in other publications like the FT and the Telegraph, but I wanted to take it from somewhere else. So this has been out here everywhere. Nearly 50,000 firms face collapse in that storm and collapse as high interest rates send borrowing costs rocketing. So that's why people are going out there filming city centers, and all the shops are boarded up. There's nothing going on. They're bringing this economy down either through incompetence or either through evil designs, I would say. So we're going to stop right here, talking about the economy. Just want to talk a little bit about a book. I'm going to recommend another book that I actually just finished reading, and it took me only 10 days or so to read it. It was a very good book, and it talks a lot about, well, it's about the period of the Napoleonic Wars, and there's a lot in there that is you can relate to today, and that's why I recommend it. It's Ken Follett's The Armor of Light, and Kingsbridge is a fictitious place, even though it's like in England, right? This is the what you call historical fiction, where there is the Napoleonic Wars, where England or the UK is fighting Napoleon, but the main characters are not quite real, true. They're fictitious. But what I like about this book is that it talks actually about the fact that the Royal Navy, for example, half of its sailors were press ganged. And you might want to look up that term, press gang, impressment, it's called. And that's when they basically kidnap people to join the Royal Navy. And what they used to do is they used to pay, let's say, ladies of the night to go into the taverns and spike the ale of the people there, or the men drinking in the taverns, with gin to make them drunk, to make it easier for the thugs that were employed by the Royal Navy to kidnap them, to take them and make them serve in the Royal Navy. So half the sailors fighting the Napoleonic Wars were basically kidnapped or press ganged into the Royal Navy. You kind of wonder if they're going to do that again. Press gang people into fighting Putin, right? Or Xi Jinping. The other thing they talk about is the inflation. Yes. And again, it was the poorer people, the general public that felt it, not the very rich who would go to Brussels right at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, the aristocracy, and pay for champagne while people were dying, on the battlefield. And how did they inflate the system back then? Because they had silver coinage. Of course, with the gold coinage, they had the Bank Restriction Act, where they suspended the gold standard in 1797 for the next 20 years or so. So there wasn't probably that much gold flowing around. But with the silver coins, what they did is that they basically made it smaller. And I have an example here of how they did it. I have a shilling here from 1787 shilling. So you got George III on it. And then I've got a shilling here from 1817. So just after the Napoleonic Wars, a couple of years after Waterloo. And it's still got George III on it. But the interesting thing is, if you put them together, you can see how the old shilling was bigger and weighed more. So when you got the new shilling, which was 12 pence, you knew that there wasn't as much silver, so it would cost more to buy, a loaf of bread or whatever, or to pay your rent than this one. So that's how they inflated the system. And unfortunately, people back then, the majority of people didn't know how to read and write. They didn't know about these things, about inflation. So it was probably a lot easier to get by doing this for the establishment. Nowadays, of course, we don't have any more silver nor any more gold. And they do it through basically creating money out of thin air. and through using digital money, the money we use through debit cards and through online banking, but also through the paper money. And they're not silver coins anymore. They're just copper nickel coins. They're token coins. So maybe we should look at the markets now, see what's going on. And yeah, I saw that we had a US GDP yesterday. And I even saw a headline from Seeking Alpha, and it actually said Goldilocks economy. And I laughed because a Goldilocks economy is an economy that is doing really well. There's low inflation, there's low unemployment. But when you look at the US debt situation, and I'll show you here, the federal government is spending about 22% of GDP, which is here, right? Government spending is part of GDP. So is the economy doing really well? Or is it more because the government is spending a lot of money? I think it's the latter. And you see the deficit, I think that is running more like 2 trillion, which is like 7% of GDP. So all the borrowing is making the economy look better. The other thing they did with the GDP number I want to show you is here, and I'll enlarge it. The previous number, because they have an advance and then a second and then the final GDP. I think the previous GDP calculation for Q4 was 4.9%, and they had a price index, which is basically how much inflation is going up by, of 3.3%, which is similar to the current numbers of CPI, 3.6 or thereabouts. But notice how the actual number that came out yesterday, yes, it was higher than what they expected at 2%. It was 3.3. But do you really think prices are going up only 1.5%? So they basically lopped off 1.8% from inflation to give you that number, because in real terms, if you had 3.3, 1.8% more, this number would be a lot. It would be like more like 1.5. So what I'm saying here, they can do anything they want with the statistics. So let's go see where the markets are, and we'll quickly go through it. You can see here where things are. Gold is unchanged around 2020. Silver is down slightly. Silver's been doing well, of course. Right now, they're trying to keep it below 23. The stock market, though, is having a tough time this morning, even though we are pretty much at all-time highs, so I wouldn't read too much into it. The currencies as well, they've come off a bit. They're slightly lower this morning, as you can see, versus the dollar. But one thing I wanted to show you is crude oil, and I'll bring up a chart. I think crude oil is looking very bullish. And why do I say that? Well, because we've broken definitively out of this falling wedge, and that's a bullish formation. So I do expect crude oil to keep going higher. Will it break this previous high from last year around 94 or $95? It could. And if it does, we could see oil race higher. And why is this happening? Well, it could be because of geopolitical events. It could be due to the fact that monetary policy isn't that tight, and government is spending a lot, so it's goosing up everything. It's inflating the system. But technically, it looks really bullish. I wanted to show you that. And let's just go quickly look at the bond market. Well, US Treasuries, you see the 10-year yield is down slightly here, around 4.12. And the 2-year as well is around 4.30. So the difference there is only 18 now. So I think the curve is going to continue to disinvert. That's a sign that there will probably be a recession. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.